It was supposed to be just another half day at school for us because there was a teacher in service meeting in the auditorium. I stayed behind to work on a project with my friend Kayla, but after only a few minutes, her boyfriend messaged her and she bailed on me. She left me behind, alone in the empty library. I don't think anyone even knew I was still on campus. Even the librarian was gone. But I was fine with that. My mom ran a daycare out of our house at the time, and if I went home, I'd get roped into helping her. Plus, it was raining, and I hoped it would stop before I had to walk home. As the clock ticked on, I got lost in making my video about the events leading up to the French Revolution. But when I suddenly felt the heavy pressure of being watched, I looked up to see a man standing in the rain, watching me through the library window. He had a blank expression on his face and was wearing a long brown coat that looked drenched. His face was just expressionless, and he didn't look away or react at all when I looked up at him. I almost screamed. He surprised me so much, and I remember thinking the guy must have been some creep for looking in school windows like that. I figured he'd move off now that I'd seen him. Nope, he just stood there staring at me. I looked down, hoping he'd just go away, but I could see him out of the corner of my eye, unmoving, just watching. There was nowhere I could go in that room without being seen through the big window, so I grabbed my project and shoved everything in my bag, flipping him off as I ran out of the library down the hall towards my locker. Unnerved by the creepy guy, I took a breath and leaned against the metal locker doors, dropping my backpack at my feet. That's when I heard the door at the end of the hall creak open, the door to the outside that was always supposed to be locked. Glancing nervously over my shoulder, I caught sight of the man in the brown coat as the door closed behind him. His blank expression turned into a disgusting smile as he started running towards me. I bolted for the auditorium, hearing his footsteps behind me as I ran. I slammed through the auditorium doors, barely getting the words out to the shocked teachers that someone was in the school and was chasing me. A few of them went to look, while they kept me in the auditorium. The man was gone, leaving behind his wet footprints in the hallway all the way back to the parking lot door. Someone had taped the lock over the latch so it wouldn't shut all the way, which is how he'd gotten in so easily. When they called my mom and I was finally able to go home, I discovered my backpack was missing. This creep must have stolen it, and now he had my house keys and my ID with my home address. In the late 80s, I worked in a little gift store just off the highway from a city with some big tourist attractions. The store was busy in the day when most families traveled, but got dead in the evenings. 2 years before I had started there, a violent robbery had occurred, resulting in the store clerk's life being cut short. Anyone who knew that area had heard of the crime and also knew the perpetrator was never caught. The store felt tainted after that. For safety reasons, we were supposed to work in twos at every shift, but things don't always go as planned. And after a year or so, there was regularly only one clerk left on every shift again, just like when the tragedy happened. It felt uncomfortable in the evenings, heavy and sad. Nobody wanted to work evenings. The storeroom was where she had been found, her body crammed into a box. And it was the epicenter of the store's eerie atmosphere. A heavy, oppressive feeling would settle over you as soon as you stepped foot inside. And the longer you stayed back there, The feeling grew worse until it felt like someone was standing just beside you, screaming silently into your ear. Some evenings you'd feel overcome with sadness back there, and other evenings unexpected rage. Strange things would happen in that room in the evenings. You'd hear and find boxes tossed onto the ground, and once I heard an entire shelf slam down, as if by some invisible force. And then there were the alarms, randomly going off without cause or warning, prompting us to call the police, only for them to find the entrances intact upon arrival. Over time, we grew accustomed to these strange occurrences, even going so far as to call the police ahead of time and tell them not to bother responding to the alarms if they went off while we were in the store. I dreaded working alone in the evenings. The silence of the store amplified every creak and sound in the building. Sometimes the feeling was so heavy that I'd keep a customer talking just to avoid being alone for a few more minutes. One evening, just before I locked the front door for the night, a car pulled into the parking lot, bright headlights shining into the store window. I watched from the counter, hoping they'd go away since I'd already started shutting off the lights. A man stepped out of the car, looking strung out and twitchy. He made me uneasy, and I remember wishing I'd locked the door earlier. He didn't look like a gift store shopper, but walked among the aisles, sort of watching me sideways. I also kept an eye on him while I did my closing duties. When the only thing left to do was count the drawer, I looked up in time to see a woman with long black hair gliding with an otherworldly grace down the farthest aisle towards the back of the store. Instinctively, I followed her, forgetting all about the twitchy guy. My heart was pounding in my chest as I rounded the corner towards the back room. But to my horror, there was no one there. Just the empty room bathed in the sickly glow of fluorescent light. And as I stood there, trembling with fear, I heard movement behind me and turned in time to see the man running through the small hallway towards me. The storeroom door slammed shut between us by an unseen force just as he reached it. He tried cranking on the doorknob, but it wouldn't budge. Without another thought, I ran out of the back door to my car, but by the time I'd started it and pulled around, his car was gone, along with all the day's money from the drawer. But I was alive, thanks to her. She was the reason I'm here to tell this story. I never saw her again.